Hey everybody, it's Ben Heisler from BetSided and the Bet and Breakfast podcast. And if you've ever wanted to know what Michael Chiklis, longtime Hollywood icon, is like outside of the big screen or your personal television screen, he's kind of like the rest of us. He lives and dies with his Boston sports teams. He hangs out with his wife and his two daughters, and he isn't above sharing his Wordle scores on social media. Had a chance to talk to him ahead of HBO's brand new show, Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. It debuts on HBO and HBOMAX on Sunday, March the 6th. And we started our conversation by talking about what it's like for him growing up as this massive Boston sports fan to be able to play such an iconic character in Red Auerbach, and how the character compared to this remarkable character that he grew up with in his own house as a fan. This honestly just feels like a special role, right? To be able to take this on as a major Boston sports fan. What I'm curious about is, how did the Red Auerbach that you grew up with in your mind ultimately mesh together with the character that you ended up playing on the show?
Seamlessly and really, really well. I born, raised, and educated in the Boston area. My father was a giant Red Auerbach fan, huge Celtics fan. If you're from Boston during that whole era, you had precious little to celebrate in terms of sports teams. I mean, we constantly fell short with the Red Sox and the Patriots, and we had a little bit of fun there in the early '70s with the Bruins. But the Celtics were our team; that they were a dynasty, and they gave us a lot to cheer for. And integral to that, central to that, was the great Red Auerbach. My father preached the gospel of Red Auerbach his whole life to me. And, the idea that I'm getting to play this guy, the only thing that sucks is my dad's not alive to see it. But it's still just a treat and an honor. And in studying Red, it sort of affirmed all the things that I sort of instinctively thought about him and understood about him and observed about him. But, there were some surprises. I think that, this was a guy who was completely loved and respected and revered by his teams, by the administrations of those teams, and by the public. Conversely, if you were, someone who played against him, you hated this guy and you feared him. And he was loathed by his competitors because he was such a fierce competitor.
It's a funny dynamic too, and especially having that connection to your dad as someone who preached it, like you said, the gospel of Red Auerbach. This was also a rivalry that was huge in your 20s and early 30s. That's a big, important time for a lot of sports fans.
I went to Boston. Ask the question. I'm sorry. I was just going to say I went to Boston University from '81 to '85. Okay, so I lived in the area, but then when I went to college, it was right when this was mushrooming, when this was exploding, and I was going to these games and seeing this and screaming my lungs out. So yeah, it was right in an incredible time in my life to bear witness to this thing.
What were the aspects of nostalgia that were brought back from being a part of this show for you?
Well, nostalgia is the right word, because it just instantly brought me back to that time. But it's interesting as an older man now to look back at that time, and when you're in something, your viewpoint of it, as opposed to when you look back at something with more clarity and with more information. And I just didn't realize the kind of epic impact that this rivalry would have on all of sports. And I just looked at the Lakers as another hated rival special in the way that I hated the Yankees. Because it was such a great rivalry, and they went to war with each other. But I didn't realize the impact that these teams were having on all of sport. Jerry Buss was quite a visionary, as it turns out. The guy, because he was an outsider, because he was a Hollywood guy, he was looking at it as a fun thing. That he loved the sport and he loved watching it as a spectator, and he wanted to turn that into translate to the spectator as a great form of entertainment. Whereas you have Red Auerbach, the orthodoxy. Here he is, he's the standard. He's the dynasty. He's the old school establishment East Coast basketball guy. And here comes this flash and magic and his smile and ease and charisma. And they're just perfect natural rivals. They're just opposite ends of the spectrum and coasts and everything. And it just set up the perfect pick for an amazing rivalry to watch, develop over the course of years. And then on top of it, in the late 80s, here comes MJ, and it just permeates all of sport. It was just an incredible thing, really.
They always say that sports is, a microcosm of society, right? Where a lot of times you have sort of the old school aspect, and then there's the new school, and people don't like change. And, there's so many unique characters and incredibly talented cast members in this show. But as someone who's done this for a long time, and you see how people can transform into characters, was there anybody on set that when they walked out, whether it be, John is Jerry Buss or Magic, that was the guy that had the biggest transformation, you thought?
Well, also John for sure. Like when I went into the trailer and I started to go through my transformation, and in walks John, and we, were talking and shooting the breeze, and then we walked out of the trailer together, and I looked at him. I was like, "Holy cow, man, this is unbelievable!" But also Jason Clark playing Jerry West, and I think it was exacerbated by the fact that he's very Australian, mate. He's got heavy Australian, and then he loses that, and he just transforms into this guy. And the look and the hair and the shoes and the bell bottoms, brilliant. It was just, I have to say, for my part, how fun it was to slip that jacket on and go through hair and makeup, and then the stogie was just the cherry, on top. And it just helped with the transformation. So, to just typify the whole thing. It was just fantastic. So fun.
I know we have time for just one more question, but as somebody who has gotten an opportunity to play a Boston sports icon, I saw your daughter's tweet about Tom Brady retiring to respect your privacy during this difficult time, which was great. He's still listed as an MVP candidate at several sportsbooks. Is there any chance you see him returning for one more ride, one more time, even at the age of 44?
Listen, I actually haven't talked to Tom. Tom has gone lights out since and he hasn't, he's obviously circled the wagons to a tighter circle. And, so I haven't heard from him directly, so I have no inside baseball here. But I don't know why. I have maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I don't know why I have this sort of gut weird intuition that this isn't over yet. And I don't know how that'll manifest itself at all. And I'm not telling you something based on any knowledge. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Okay. I want to make that very, very clear. I don't know anything, but I'm just talking about guts. And I just am like, why do I feel like this isn't the way this is going to go down? I don't know. And again, it could be wishful thinking because, 22 years of just joy. I named my dog after this guy, A little weird, but, it's because of joy,
Not weird at all. There's plenty of folks that are going to go with, he can't be the only Tom or Brady animal or son in Boston. I can.
I don't call my dog Tom, and I don't call him Brady. I call my dog Tom Brady. I call him TB12. I call him the champion.
That's the best. Michael, thank you so much for your time. I'm so excited about the show. It's winning time. The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. It debuts on HBO and HBOMAX Sunday, March 6th. Cannot wait to watch it. Great to talk with you. Looking forward to doing this again soon. My thanks to one of the greats, Michael Chiklis, for joining us here on Bet and Breakfast. Also appreciate you guys checking out all the work that we're doing here, getting you ready for March Madness. Already off-season talks in the NFL as well. We got all the different betting angles coming for you there. If you like this, please make sure you go ahead and hit the thumbs up and subscribe. We have plenty of great content coming out over the next several weeks and beyond. Until then, we'll talk to you next time. So long.